Jade.
Right, gentlemen, welcome everybody to the Rugby Scoop podcast. It's always a pleasure to be joined by my fellow rugby gents, Vuyo in Russia. I've got Jade all the way in Bloemfontein. Today, we will cover the Blue Bulls Lions game, Netflix Six Nations documentary that aired this week. And then we're going to cover a bit of the Six Nations predictions as well, because it kicks off next weekend. We all know Rassie Rasmus loves experiments. First, it was the 6-2 split. Then it was the 7-1 split. And now he's using highly hazardous chemicals. Highly hazardous chemicals. I kid. We all hoping Rassie gets a speedy recovery. The Springbok coach, we understand that he was in hospital this week. News making headlines today. The rumor mill, former All Black fly-off, Tony Brown, might be joining the Springboks. Genius move by the man who loves experiments, Rassie Rasmus. But before we get into it, gents, today we're going to start off the show a bit differently. We're going to get to know the panel a wee bit. They're going to share maybe one or two things that they would like for our listeners to understand about them, to know about them. Do they know rugby? Are they frauds? I'm kidding. Anyway, Vuyo, how you doing, man? How's Russia? How's the cold?
Yeah, everything is good. Everything is good on this side. Had to get another VPN because they're trying to block all VPNs. So it's a bit of a struggle. But yeah, it's actually been quite warm. 0 degrees, perfectly happy to have that. So it's not bad. Yeah.
I've never seen anyone who's ever said they are happy on 0 degrees. But anyway, Hugh, how's it going over there?
Very good, Scoop. Thanks very much. I'm very happy to be here. The weather's getting a little bit warmer. It's not warm, but it's warmer than it was here in the UK. And yeah, looking forward to getting stuck into it.
Yeah, I think we're also having some pretty ordinary, pretty good conditions here in Amsterdam as well. Jade, Bloemfontein, always with electricity. I'm very cautious approaching you right now.
Yeah, no, the spot always run during my load shedding time.
How you doing?
Nah, all good. All good, bro. Just hot in Bloemfontein. It's going to get warmer this week. Yeah, all good.
Fantastic. Jade, starting off with you, mate. Just a bit about yourself. I mean, how much footy you've been involved with. What is it that you do on a daily basis? And yeah, man, I mean, what brought you to this game, basically?
Yeah, so I've got a 9-to-5 office-related job in pharmaceuticals, but yeah, let's not talk about that too much. But I'm a qualified and trained sports scientist. I work with a few teams and a few sports teams around Bloemfontein. I also did a few coaching after playing. I played a few club football, played at varsity level as well, but not the honors and accolades that my mate Vio has over here, so I'm not going to bore you too much about that. But yeah, now I'm a couch potato and a tavern pundit, so I always having arguments over rugby, learning from the best of the guys on Twitter, on X. I'm learning from the pundits. Always looking at analyzing the game, always looking at stats now. My dad's actually, he has level 3 coaching, so he's actually, he's been coaching and playing for what's it now, 40 years or so thereabout, but he's always been the one that's been, when you talk rugby to him, even when you watch the game with him, he was from a discipline aspect. I think Rio does the same, But yeah, so now that's the mindset that I grew up in. Just the interesting thing is I'm one of those guys that love rugby stories. I mean, I've always loved the stories of 80s and 70s rugby, hearing about it, hearing about the Lions tours and the All Black tours back in the day to South Africa with Billy Bush and, Sid Going, those guys. And so I always like a story. I always like to hear a few things, and it's always that sticks with me. So yeah, just rugby mad. It's always been like that. I'm starting something now. I'm starting a mentorship program where I'm actually looking at, getting a few mentors for guys that fall through the ranks, that the guys that don't get top contracts at the Bulls or the Stormers or so. I'm looking at, getting those guys back on track, trying to get those guys into institutions and trying to get them to make a career from rugby. You don't need to play professionally to get a career from rugby, because rugby is an opportunity for you to go and study and to get something, make something with your name. So that's what I'm looking at now. That's where I am now. What I'm basically doing is taking up my free time. But yeah, I'll give you more insight on that once we get it up and running.
Fantastic. For all the listeners out there, reach out to Jade, also on social media as well, if you want to lend a hand to his contribution to society. Moving to a societal man, into the numbers cruncher, Hugh Griffin.
Hello, yeah. So I also have a 9 to 5. I work in automotive engineering in the UK. So hence, I've always been mathsy, numbersy. I've always found that easier than words, which is why I do so many podcasts. Oh, no, that doesn't work, does it? So I came to rugby quite late in life compared to a lot of people. So I never played the game. My granddad is the one who got me into the sport. He was obviously a proud Welshman and took me to see rugby games and things. The household that I grew up in was obviously very loving and supporting. We didn't watch sport much growing up. I had a football team that I knew I supported, but we didn't have Sky, or BT didn't exist back then. So it wasn't until sort of when I was 12, 13 that I really started becoming aware of sport and rugby. And I just got more and more into it. The more I learned about it, the more I was addicted to it. And that's now to the point where I'm spending all day, Saturday and Sunday, watching it, talking about it, crunching the numbers and things. And yeah, it's just it's something that I've found really clicked with me. And it's something that I love to learn about. I love talking to everybody online about it, not least all the fantastic people on this podcast. And yeah, I'm on my journey kind of exploring it. And the thing that I get a kick out of really is making friends through it, really.
Nice, man. Fantastic, guys. All the support there for Hugh, as he's also on a journey of developing some skill set within the rugby aspect and the analysis as well. He's doing a great job on the timeline, sharing the numbers with us as well, which is pretty good. I mean, last but not least, the legendary, the hot stepper, the Smirimiri, Vickers Miranda.
Yeah, what an introduction. Well, those days are gone now, bro. So I'm different to these guys. I've got an 8 till 3 a.m. job that I just have to do every day. So, yeah, it's pretty much it. I'm coaching. Played 19 tournaments for South Africa. Won a World Series in 2009. Retired due to some injuries. Started coaching 2010. Basically, I was fortunate to be roped in assistant coach immediately with the Springbok Sevens. Learned from my mentor Paul Through. Learned quite a lot from him. Then we moved to Kenya together. We coached together in Kenya. Then he left me in Kenya to join the Stormers. Then I sort of hung around for a year. That was 2015, and that's when I developed quite a lot of learning from rugby, because I was alone. I needed to find ways to how to do things, and obviously coaching in smaller unions, if you can say, also became one of the things that I did, which is you had to adapt due to the systems, coming from a privileged background with South Africa. So you just had to adapt and make sure that you did what you could. 2017, joined Germany, worked with Germany for 2 years. First year we played 3 finals. The first ever finals, we played 3 finals. We lost to Ireland, all those finals. Pretty much the same team that's on the World Series now. And then in 2019, sorry, we managed to beat Ireland in the semis and won the European Series in 2019. And then Based on the fact that I was away from my kids, I decided to move back home to the Kings, join the Kings. Played, was part of the Pro 14 till COVID hit, and then obviously Kings were sort of shut down after that because they had no funds. So I had to move to Russia, and I've been in Russia for the last 3 years. Yeah, it's pretty much an eye opener for me. I never lived in a place with so much snow, and I never lived in a place where I've had to train indoors. And especially when you're working on sevens is all about the space and the and getting your players to understand space and getting your players to understand how you can utilize the space. And then it doesn't help that you're training on an indoor which is 30 by 40. So you have to adapt. It's always about adapting and trying your best and obviously making your job work. Yeah, I've seen some good results and I've seen some poor results, but you know what? There's always learning. I love our space because for me it's something that to hear other guys' perspective, because we all learn from each other. We're all trying to actually learn more about this game. And so for me, being in the space and I think for the listeners as well, you guys asking questions also helps just us to actually be on a different perspective, and also and it pushes us in a different direction as well, just to understand, because we it's all about working with kids. It's all about working with young men, trying to get them to understand rugby, and not only that, and you're just trying to get the best humans, man, out of the men. We've done a lot of. There's a lot of unfairness in the world. We know that in terms of GBV and all of that, but we always try to make sure that the guys that will go through your hands and your systems always give you a call after 10 years and tell you about how their families are going and how many kids they have. And that's what we do. That's why we do what we do. We love it. And it's all about just the small, how you can impact people in a small way. Yep, that's me. Thank you.
Cheers, Vickers. Thank you very much for that nice, well-put introduction there, gents. From my side, I mean, probably have lived two lives, basically. There's a work life, then there's a rugby life, sports life. But yeah, so just to nip it in the bud very quickly, background from Bloemfontein in the studies element. That's where I did my SARU level 1 and level 2 coaching. I think this was back in 2004 and 5, my first and second year. And then started coaching at a primary school level, moved out of varsity, went back to East London, started coaching at Hudson Park under 15s. That's when I was working with Dave Williams, who's now currently the Sharks coach. And the following year, I still stayed in East London as well. I worked then with Piwe, who's also now with the Bulls. And then from there, went to Johannesburg, worked with the Wits under 21s, under 19s as well. And then I decided, okay, enough with the coaching. Let me focus maybe a bit on grabbing the whistle. So I started a journey with the Lions, Golden Lions rugby referees. As a candidate referee, was fast-tracked quite quickly into the system, moved from grade 5 to grade 1 quite quickly in that aspect. So worked within the Cravenwick element as well. Then moved to the Netherlands. Now I'm involved in a rugby club called Rotterdam Rugby Club. But I'm part of what? I'm a referee involved in maybe assisting the club as well, maybe understanding a bit of law knowledge, trying to reduce penalty count, etc. I'm also involved with Rugby Europe refereeing panel as well, so developing in that aspect. And also congratulations to my club yesterday. They beat Gooi, which was quite a tough game. Trying to analyze that game as well, before we set up this space. But yeah, I'm dabbling in IT consultancy from 9 to 5. So there's also that element of my life as well. Married man, living in Amsterdam now. Originally South African, guys, because a lot of people probably think, what is going on? How is this guy speaking closer, but he's based in Amsterdam? But yeah, here we are. Gentlemen, here we are. Here we are. We're gonna start off with the Blue Bulls and the Lions. I know we want to take a deep dive into this, but Sanele Nohamba, Jade, what a talent! Had some troubles with the Sharks. The Sharks let him go. He had to basically go to the Lions and rebuild himself, rebrand himself. The Lions were in a terrible position at that point. Cash moving from physio to head coach, struggles. But now Sanele Nohamba is finding his feet at the Lions. Tell me about it. Tell me more about this guy.
This guy's going to be a buck. This guy is, I think, the game that the Boks play against Portugal in Bloemfontein, I think there he'll make his debut. I'm calling it now that he'll be in the match day 23 that day. I don't know at 9 or 10, doesn't matter, but that's Rassie's dream, to have a 9 and a 9 that can play 10. And you can actually work with this guy, for the next 4 years. He can be a crucial member in your match day 23. He's not just, how can I say, talking the talk, he's doing the work as well. He is another player that left the Shark setup. It went to another union and just grabbed his opportunity with both hands, whether it was at 9 or at 10. I know most people prefer him at 9, but I'm loving him at 10. I'm loving him. That try that I think it was Marius Low scored, the break that he took. That's just Sanele Nohamba we knew and we saw at Craven Week. This is the guy we saw blitzer and tear it apart at Craven Week. We know, I think, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't Nohamba in the same S20 team as Damien Willemse and I think Manili Bok and all of those guys? Maybe I'm mistaken there, but I mean, that's why I saw this guy. And he reminded me so much of a French 9, maybe because he has the kicking attributes as well. He kicks well to poles. He reminded me of a Morgan Parra, something like that, But now the way he took his game and the way he took his opportunities and he's driving the team forward. That's what he's doing. He's driving the team forward. He's really gone and grew in this kind of quarterback role at the Lions. I like him. Him and Klapakane has been my two favorite players at the Lions. I've been raving about him all season, the biggest and the smallest guys. But I think I'm making my prediction. I think the shackles is off. He's balling. I think Portugal against the Boks in Bloemfontein in June, July later this year. I think that's when we're going to see this guy get his Boks debut. I think so.
Oh, fair. Hugh, what do you make of? I think it was the only URC game this weekend. The Bulls and the Lions. I know you're a big Blue Bulls fan after your Ospreys. Oh,
Scarlets. I do not support the Ospreys.
Scarlets. My bad. Your thoughts on the game yesterday?
I loved it. It's one of my favourite games I've watched so far this year. We've had Jade on the Pirate Pod explaining to us why, this is such a David and Goliath matchup because the resources that the Bulls have compared to the Lions is a different world. Really, the Lions have no right to be testing the Bulls that hard. The Bulls, I don't know, I felt like at times they weren't switched on. Maybe they took the Lions a bit for granted at times. But yeah, Nohamba, absolutely amazing. The bit where he fainted to do the drop goal, then beat two men, then returned to the exact same spot and kicked the drop goal anyway. I'm like, who does that? And then the tight head prop for the Lions, the 158 kgs guy. Wow, what a hero! And I can't remember who it was that he smashed, but absolutely felt that one bounced into touch. Yeah, a fantastic game. It felt like the Bulls were on top, and this seems to be a bit of a trend with the Bulls that I've seen this season is that they're on top, and then they just let their opponent back into it. Their opponent might not be getting a touch, might not be anywhere near it, but then they just give them a try, give them a score out of nowhere. So probably closer than it needed to be. Is it Goosen, the Bulls 10?
Yeah,
Goosen. He stepped up and he nailed that long range kick at the end. But to be fair, apart from that, I thought he had a bit of a horror game. I didn't think he was amazing in this. And with the Bulls' money, I don't know. I'll let you guys discuss it a bit more. But will they be looking for a new fly half? I don't know. Maybe rescue Pollard from Leicester Tigers. I don't know. But yeah, amazing game. I was on the edge of my seat all the way through it. It was a bit like, what the Lions got in that game against the Sharks, where Chamberlain missed the kick I think they got it paid back in this one where they missed the kick at the end, and that's just how it goes sometimes. I think it's a great result for them. Even if they didn't get the win, it was a spirited performance, and yeah, I need more Nohamba in my life, please.
One more question before I jump to Vuyo now for you, Hugh. Who is the real Messi? Sanele Nohamba or Finn Russell?
This weekend it was Nohamba because Finn Russell had an absolute shocker against Bristol in what was the stupidest game of rugby I've seen so far this year. But yeah, no, we love Finn, and rugby is better for having Finn in it. But this weekend he didn't have his best game, and Nohamba very much did.
Fair enough. Vuyo, your thoughts?
Oh, I'm gonna get killed for this one. I'm gonna differ from my fellow guys here. Looking at the game, for example, when Nohamba has been playing at 10 and switching to 9 in the second half, I mean, the guy was brilliant. He started the game, I think, was it the Sharks or last weekend? We started the game at 9. The game they lost last minute, was it against? Can't remember. It was against one of the worst sides.
Ospreys.
Yes, he started the game at 9. I don't know if you guys saw that first half, how he ran everything. The rucks were like literally 1 second, 1.5 second, and he was getting rid of the ball so quickly at 9. And then when they switched him to 10, the Lions fell apart. For me, Nohamba is an absolutely 9. And I said to one of my mates, I said, I think actually Nohamba is a better scrum half than the Sharks scrum half. But it's just that he had his issues at the Sharks, and probably that's why he ended up moving. But for me, the way everything he did in that game, in terms of his kicking, in terms of that first half, in terms of his kicking at 9, in terms of his just the distribution, and what he adds is that element of with Cam Roygard and Dupont, that sniping off the off around the fringes. That's what he adds. He can definitely step his way through. I mean, we saw Aaron Smith score a lot of tries doing exactly the same thing. But for me, Nohamba is a perfect guy at 9, and if they could just leave him there, I think he'll definitely, as Jada said, he'll definitely make his Bok debut this year. But with this changing of 9 and 10, I'm just not sure. And also, having such a short guy at 10, it's going to have to be a reshuffling again, where he's been sent to from lineouts, he's been sent to go to the trams. So all those kind of things just play a factor. Whereas I feel if he's a 9, then you don't have to be worried about anything. But obviously, coaches now feel differently about how they see it. But from what I saw from the Bulls, very static. They didn't get enough purchase. They were getting dominated physically. I think the turnaround from the Lions it's been there, as Jada said, Abenati. I think he's been brilliant at tight head. Looking at Lou said, so the flankers, Emmanuel Chituka, he's been amazing. Oh my gosh, Horn, what's his name? Frankie Horn. Guys, I think actually Frankie Horn is the best 8 we have currently. I'm just being honest.
Oh no, I can't agree with that.
I think he's the best 8. That. I think he's the best 8 we have at the moment. He's miles above the rest. Then you get obviously Nohamba, and then you get Lowe. Marius Lowe at 12, who's being brilliant. So there's a couple of players that are stepping up massively for the Lions, and they're putting our teams under pressure. So for me, I think for as long as they keep those guys on the field, I think they'll definitely get some silverware this year.
Jade.
Yeah, no, I agree with Vuyo. With the aspects of Nohamba, he looks cleaner when he plays 9. But I want to add to it that, what it does give you is he gives you options. So he gives Rassie options. I mean, if you're looking at Lebok and Pollard, and we all know that Pollard he's he does have this tendency to get injured now and then. So who's next? Who's next in line as a 10? Do they go back to Damien Willemse? But what happens to kicking at goal? So who's the next one in line? Obviously, I think honestly, maybe Sasha could put in that frame, but when last has he played rugby? So what Nohamba does is, if you have him in the squad at 9, maybe with a 6-2 split covering 9 and 10, maybe Damien can go to 10, and then you have Nohamba at 9 that kicks to poles, that has the kicking game, and take some pressure off Damien Willemse if push comes to shove in certain tests where you have a shortage at 10. So what it does is he's a versatile player that is actually a backline player for a coach that would enable you to pick an extra forward in your squad because he covers a few positions. And the Boks have quite a few of those kind of players in the back. So I think that's what for me is, why Rassie would use him and choose him in one of his squads. Because of that, he's very versatile and he covers a few positions. As for Frankie Warren, yeah, I like Frankie Warren at 8, like we always say, but the impressive thing of Frankie Warren this season is that, remember, sometimes he plays in a pack that's not dominating. And for number 8 to make meters when you're playing in a pack that's not dominating is impressive. I think he's really been one that's given 110% every single game, similar like what we saw when Warren Whiteley was there for a few years ago. I really like him as an 8. I'm not sure if he'll make the Bok team because there is quality 8s going around, but he is putting his hand up every week, yeah.
Yeah, Hugh, you can jump in.
Yeah, I just think the Boks are careful. If they're not careful, they're going to end up with too many ballers in their team. So if you have like Nohamba at 9, the Bok at 10, Sasha at 12, and Willemse at 15, that's exciting, but I'm not sure it's going to work very well. So yeah, I think I completely agree with Jade. I think if you have Nohamba on the bench, then it gives you again that ability to go 7-1 or 6-2 if you want. But I think you can't have too many players like that in your team for me. I think that you always need your Diolendes and your Pollards and your Willie LaRues, who are maybe less exciting, perhaps, in some ways, but they do the job and they fulfill their role and they do it very well.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, Vuyo, listening to what Jake White maybe had to say yesterday, he thinks the Lions are quite unstructured or unorthodox side. Is that maybe the formula that's currently working out for them in terms of not being predictable, not playing a very structured game, an organized game, an easy to read game? What are your thoughts regarding the Lions game plan from Cash?
Yeah, but you see that, but that's what it is. It's about adapting. I think we the Lions, what we've seen in the past, they've always tried to play a very structured game and a very upfront game. Whereas exactly what you were saying now about just there were too many. They were going back from the scrums. They didn't have a solid structure from the forwards. So which made the game that they tried to play a lot more difficult. Now, what they're doing now is that they've got a dominant scrum, and their lineouts are actually not bad. But at the same time, they bring in that unpredictability. So, which is for me, that's exactly the perfect game, because they can actually go to the structure if they wanted to, because their scrums have been absolutely brilliant. So, but if this is working for now, then it helps them a little bit. We've seen that from the Stormers. I know a lot of people who hate me for it. The Stormers play a very unstructured game, but they've always done what well. They've always had a good lineup. They've always had a very strong scrum. So they won a URC like that. So why can't the Lions do the same? We're not saying that obviously they might not have the same quality players, but at the moment it's actually working out for them. They've beaten the Sharks. They came close to the Bulls. The only team that probably haven't pushed to the wire is the Stormers, but it's still a competition.
Fair. Speaking of solid scrums, Jade mentioned quite a formidable player who has a huge presence on the park, and Tlabaganye. And obviously, I saw a comment as well during the week about Tlabaganye versus Nietling for sure at the Stormers. I mean, Jade, good tight head props currently. There's one at the Stormers and now the one at the Lions as well. I mean, who do you see from yourself or from your perspective maybe getting a call up to the Springboks. Obviously, they'll probably be holding a lot of bags. They might not get a run in the park, but who do you think will get a call up and be part of the squad growing and getting into the maybe rugby championship or end of the year tour?
Look, to be a tight head prop is one of those positions you're born a tight head prop. You can't develop and move into a tight head position from another position, or so you're born to play that position. And I think Tlabakane has, he's got the potential to be a Bok one day. I would still suggest that I think he's below Wilco Low, who is the next one that's knocking to go into the squad. I don't know what the plan is with Trevor. Trevor is aging. I think he's 35, 36. So would he give a few seasons more or not? But I mean, there's still Vincent Koch. There's still Frans Malherbe who is there. So it would be difficult really for him to, or Neetling to come straight into the team. I think they really settled at tight head with those two there, and then Wilco Low has been there and thereabouts. So I think he's the one that would be next in line. And then Neetling for sure has been doing well, so is Ntlabakane as well. But I mean, there's nothing wrong with including Ntlabakane in this team as in the squad to work with Dan Newman, and the rest of the scrum gurus, because he's still got a lot to learn at this level. It's easy, or not easy, but I mean, there's a big difference when it comes to props when you dominate at franchise level and you going up in playing this rugby. It takes a year or two to adapt and to get everything right. Sometimes they might even tell him, listen, you got to lose 5 or 10 kilos, before you can become a class or a good number, a good tighted prop. So yeah, that's the plan. But I'm sure Rassie has a plan for him. I'm sure Rassie might just. We saw it last year with, or 2 years ago with the prop from the Sharks. What's the guy's name? He played. He was a loose forward. I think he was a loose forward at school, and he moved up to a loose head. Is it two? I can't get his name now, but he moved up and he played at a game against Wales. And we never saw him again in the squad or so. But they might just bring the guy in as a apprentice and to learn from Dan Newman, to learn from the box squad, because to be honest, to get into the box squad is not as easy as it was maybe a few years ago. It's difficult to get into that squad now, and with back-to-back World Cups, it should be. So I think Rassie has a plan for him. He knows exactly who's the two guys he might be looking at and taking over from Trevor, because there is a spot there, or from Koch if Koch doesn't perform. So yeah, let's wait and see. But I think if I was Rassie, I would bring him in as an apprentice, both of them, Neetling as well, so that they can learn and they can see what the culture is, the Bok culture is, and then end of year to next year, maybe that's when you can really include them in.
No, fair. Hugh, yes, sir.
I'm just thinking about Paul Rees-Carey at Cardiff. He's one of the best ball carriers in Wales, and he's Cardiff's, I think, third player for defenders beaten per 80, and he's a loose head prop. And he's been dropped from Wales and told he can't get back in until he loses some weight. Meanwhile, the world champions, you got Oxen J doing sponsorships with cake people and posting pictures of him eating cake all over social media. And now this new guy at the Lions, 158 kgs, everybody loves him. Like, Rees-Carey must be just have his head in his hands like, what? How has this happened to me?
Salads do not win you scrums, apparently. Anyway, speaking of Rasmus, speaking of the Springbok setup, news coming in today. Vickers, Tony Brown, legendary Highlander. He was with Jamie Joseph in Japan. They've done wonderful work in Japan. He did wonderful work with the Highlanders. Very good skills coach, very good defensive coach as well, actually, with the way the Highlanders won Super Rugby when he was coaching them or assisting Jamie Joseph as well. Japan doing well in 2019 Rugby World Cup. Jamie Joseph and Tony Brown were involved. Now there's headlines making news this Sunday that Tony Brown might come and join the Springboks. I mean, just thinking about the influence he can bring in. Hugh spoke about you can't have, or we might have too many ballers. I mean, the amount of talent in South Africa currently at the moment would benefit immensely from a guy like Tony Brown. What are your thoughts about Tony Brown coming to join the Springboks, and how much influence do you think he will have into the South African systems?
Yeah. So when I saw the news, I was very surprised. Very, very surprised. for me, I always remember the way Japan played in 2019 World Cup. Their transition, how they were so quick to get into some sort of like a shape, and the shape, and they let the ball do the work, and everyone had their roles. And I think that's if that was the case, if that is what Rassie will try to bring in um, Tony Brown for, then definitely the perfect guy for South Africans, because first of all, we have dominant carriers. So we'll have dominant carriers. We've got elusive back three with Damien Willems at 15, Arends, Chesn Kobe, Moody. So he'll bring in those guys and make them look like gold. If that is what South Africa is looking at doing. And if Rassie is really thinking about it, I will definitely commend him. I think they will definitely learn a lot, especially from someone like Tony Brown. He knows exactly how to build those type of plays where it's unpredictable. Yes, he does go overboard sometimes. He does go overboard in terms of trying out new things, but that's a good thing about him. He's creative. He doesn't let himself rest on just the norms. And I think that the disappointing thing we would see is if he's brought in, and then the structures don't change, and then we still have the same structures where we kick, we dominate the rucks, and then we try to work a turnover from there. So I think that would be disappointing. But if you're talking about bringing him in, so that we start looking at changing the way we play as South Africans, then I think it would be a great appointment.
Fair enough. Hugh, how familiar are you guys with the likes of Tony Brown and his influence in the Southern Hemisphere up north?
Almost not at all, I'm afraid. It's not someone I'm aware of. It doesn't even sound like an all black name.
Tony Brown.
So yeah, I'm sorry, I can't offer much on this one.
No, fair enough. Jade, your thoughts?
Yeah, Tony Brown, party at Tony Brown's. That's what they call it. The famous Tony Brown playbook. I mean, that is established all the time at Otago, and then later at the Islanders, moving on to Japan as well. I think it will be a huge scoop for South African rugby if they do get him. I think it will also show that Rassie is willing to, think outside of the box a little bit here, allowing Tony Brown to express himself, coaching. Remember, Rassie as well, he's also been very innovative with his coaching. So, I mean, you can go back and think the stuff he did at the Cheetahs, the moves that he done there, and the Stormers as well. So, he's got a similar maverick style to what Tony Brown has. And, a few years ago in Super Rugby, the kick behind the head of Lima Sapawanga. Can you remember that move? School back when Ben Smith almost scored in the corner, and there's just a lot of playbook. The year the Islanders won Super Rugby, they were phenomenal, with the style of rugby. So I think for me, it will be a massive addition to the Bok team. Last week, Vio mentioned that Felix Jones, his role was, to keep an eye on the guys overseas in Europe or so and prepare them, especially when it was COVID as well, where traveling was restricted. There's a lot of Bok players playing in Japan. Maybe this is also something why they're looking at Tony Brown as well, because he does have that Japanese rugby background. Maybe that's something. I don't know. It could be something to do with that. The defense coach coming in, I do not know too much of him. The guy from Harlequins, I do not know too much of him, but I mean, the Boks has a well defensive system at the moment. There's not really much changes you can make. But attacking wise, I mean, Tony Brown, forget that he had a stint at the Stormers as well. He played there. If you can give a background of Tony Brown, he was the guy that sat on the bench for Andrew Mertens. So he was that guy. But he was brilliant. He was a brilliant rugby player. I think what he can do with the likes of Lebok, Willems, Colby, that backline, scary things, scary hours if he does get the job, if they do go with him. And obviously, he is attracted, to come to South Africa. That's a positive thing for South Africa, that he wants to coach, he wants to be the assistant coach at the Boks. I mean, he's been one that hasn't really left Jamie Joseph's side. He went everywhere with Jamie Joseph. And Jamie Joseph went back to New Zealand now, so he's kind of stranded. I was chatting to Scrumming Fire for a few months ago and asking what's going to happen to Tony Brown because the New Zealand coaching jobs is full. I don't see him going back to the Highlanders because he just resigned as the coach. Jamie Joseph's back at the Highlanders, so where to now for him? What's he going to do? Stay in Japan, or is this Joseph-Tony Brown partnership coming to an end now? It looks like he's going his own way and he's going to make a name for himself, on his own now.
Yeah. But Jade, sticking with you on this one, do you think maybe Razor probably missed an opportunity here, seeing that Tony Brown was available, and seeing that Jamie Joseph went back to the Highlanders as a director now of rugby? I mean, do you think maybe, Razor probably missed an opportunity?
I don't know, because if you look at what Ray's done with his setup, he's gone with 2 attack coaches. So he's gone with Jason Holland and he's gone with Leon McDonald. So they will split the role as the attack coach. So I'm not sure if Tony Brown would have really come into that setup as well. Maybe Tony Brown's loyalty was with Jamie Joseph, and he said that, listen, it was between Jamie Joseph and Razor for the job. You get me if you. That's what he said a few years ago when Foster got the role and they wanted to appoint him as assistant. He said no, he's fully loyal to Jamie Joseph. So maybe also burnt a few bridges with New Zealand rugby there. I don't know what the plan is with Jamie Joseph. I don't know. Maybe he's thought to be the next All Black coach, or maybe he'll take over Wayne Smith's role in a few years' time. But yeah, I think Tony Brown and Reyes in that whole situation. I think Reyes went with Holland and with McDonald to split the role as a tech coach, and McDonald to be his assistant coach, because they know each other and they've worked together. With the under-20s, they worked together at the Crusaders and at provincial level as well. So I think that's why he went with Leon McDonald. But with Tony Brown, I think maybe, obviously for New Zealand rugby, they'll feel the loss of Tony Brown. I mean, he's been a part of the franchise system for a few years. They'd also be gutted to lose him to South Africa because they know the damage that he can cause to New Zealand rugby, or how strong he can make South African rugby, with his skill set and with his playbook. So yeah, in that aspect, yes, but I don't know if Razor really thinks that, I lost out on this one. I think he's got the guys, he handpicked the guys he wanted.
Fair enough. Speaking of playbooks, there's a player that usually does not respond well, or basically works well with playbooks. He always goes off script. He calls himself the Lionel Messi of rugby. The Netflix Six Nations documentary aired this week. There's been a lot of mixed emotions, mixed messages. A lot of people have different opinions about how this documentary is for maybe the or people that don't watch rugby regularly, or for people that enjoy rugby every now and again, etc., etc. But the UK, how has this been received, this documentary?
Well, the kind of people that I see talking about it are all people on Twitter who make content about rugby, so they're very, very, rugby obsessive, hardcore people. And the vast majority of the responses I've seen about it are that it's clearly aimed at non-rugby hardcores, like we've just said, which is fine. So I talk about this a lot on Pirate Podcast. So I was a Formula One fan before Drive to Survive for about 10 years before Drive to Survive. And when Drive to Survive came along, I watched it and I was like, well, this isn't really for me, because it's not really about Formula One, and there's elements to it which are fake. There was kind of created dramas and things taken out of chronological order and pretend team radio and things, and there's a lot, not quite to the same extent of that in Full Contact. So there's obviously like overdubbed tackle noises, which I'm kind of okay with. I will say that the editing of the highlights and the passages of play and things are excellent. They might not be 100% accurate, but I really like how they've been done. But yeah, so I was kind of expecting that with this Netflix rugby doc. And I have to say, I've only watched 2 episodes so far, but I'm enjoying it more than I expected I would. It's not technical about rugby in any way. And I think if you were expecting that, I think you were kind of expecting the wrong thing. It's about the people, and they've picked one character from each team. So they picked Finn Russell, obviously. They picked Ellis Genge, and I think he's coming across really well in it. They picked Seb Negri from Italy so far. They also picked Marcus Smith, who for me, yeah, he had some good things about him, but he didn't come across the most likable, in my opinion. Some other people may disagree with that, and that's okay. It's kind of what I expected. Like I said, I'm liking it more than what I thought I would, but it's not like about rugby. It's about the show. It's about the spectacle. I mean, you got to be honest. Like, there's 80,000 people in Twickenham for a Six Nations match. Most of them probably don't even watch every single England international, let alone support a Premiership club. That's just how rugby is. It's not the most popular sport in the world. It's a niche sport. With this, if there's people who have watched it, the proof will be in the pudding. If there's people who have watched it, younger people, more female viewers maybe, who now start to really like some of the players and start watching it from that point of view, that would be absolutely great. I don't think it's going to have the same impact for rugby that Drive to Survive did for Formula One. Just because Formula One was a very perfect storm with Drive to Survive with lockdown and everything. Like I said, I've enjoyed it more than I thought I would. I think it's well made. It's definitely.
Fair enough. Vuyo, your thoughts? Have you seen all episodes?
Actually, I finished it just before we started. I think what Hugh is talking about is actually spot on. For me, it's the norm. It's rugby. Okay, I'm involved in coaching, so it's almost like, for me, the way I could explain it is like, this is like a build-up of every game, of how important was it for every game. And so what I noticed is that they picked the player that had the most influence in that particular game for the interviews leading up to the game. So it's not like, there's not a lot of what goes on in tactics. What it just shows coaches talking about the week, talking about selection. I mean, for example, like Scotland lost Finn Russell and Stuart Hogg in one game. So it's all those small things that happens in a week-to-week basis that all us rugby coaches, I can say, we know. But the different aspect for me that I saw is just obviously what kind of background the guys that were interviewed, like Ellis Genge. I thought, I've always thought that he does come from that kind of rough, and he did say that he comes from that rough background. The Zimbabwean, pretty sad to hear his story that he plays for Italy, so pretty sad to hear his story that obviously what happened to his family. But look at where we are now in terms of how his family has transformed his family. So that was pretty touching for me. Then you get like small things where like Zamet obviously having a couple of one of his best mates is the Italy 9. So it was eye-opening in that sense. But in terms of what mostly is about rugby, for me it was like the norm. It was like your day-to-day things. Finn Russell, unfortunately, players like Finn Russell, it's always going to be tough. And Gregor Townsend did exactly the way I would have done it. He literally got him off the squad, chased him off the squad, brought him back, and he tried to connect with him better, tried to understand the player better. And the nice thing is that there was reciprocation from both players, from both people, because even Finn Russell thought to himself, maybe I've been a bad boy, maybe let me try and think in the coach's view. It's always tough. I mean, when you get those players, they'll win you a game. They will definitely win your game, but they won't win you championships, which is why it is tough to as a coach to have a player like that.
Finn Messi. Hey, Jade, your thoughts on Full Contact?
Nah, man, I use Vuyo's Netflix account, so he finished watched it now. Now I got opportunity to start with that. Only playing. I watched the first two episodes. I enjoyed it. I like these series or sports documentaries like Drive to Survive, Last Dance. I also enjoyed them. I expected it to be more like, remember the old British and Irish Lions? After the tour, they would release a video of that tour, and that was for me. I thought I would get something like that, but I like it. I'm not going to complain. England loses a lot in this whole uh, series, so I like it. It's actually fun. But yeah, it's just the whole background, the whole prep, the media coverage also, and we also look at the mental health aspect of it as well. I mean, we take for granted these are athletes getting millions of rand or millions of euro a year, etc. But what pressure comes with it? Sometimes we abuse these guys so from our couch and stuff, but we forget that they are individuals, they have families. There is a mental health aspect as well. Something that we can also take into consideration next time we bash a player on social media, etc. But I like it. I liked it so far. The first two episodes. I like the way they're going with it. Obviously, nothing's going to be perfect. There's going to be critics regarding everything. But yeah. So hopefully, I'll finish it this week. Hopefully, wife willing, I'll finish it this week.
Fair enough. I also finished it this week as well. Thought it was pretty cool. It was okay. I think the first two episodes are quite engaging, and then maybe episode 3, 4, and 5. For me, it kind of loses its edge to keep me focused. Like I'll also share the same sentiments as Vuyo. I mean, if you are involved in a maybe high performance environment on a week to week basis, it kind of looks normal. But obviously, from my perspective, I probably would have wanted to see more of the tactical approach that coaches use. I understand, obviously, the French are also using the more personal touch of understanding players in terms of mental health, etc., which is pretty good as well. But yeah, overall, yeah, it's a sports documentary. It's pretty good, but it's not at the same level as Last Dance, for example. I mean, the quality of Last Dance was, immense. But obviously, just getting in touch and understanding more of the players in the Six Nations on how they go about their days or how they go about their weeks preparing for test matches as well. Speaking of the Six Nations, it's kicking off next weekend. I mean, the biggest game for me personally, I think it's the Irish versus the French, and that's a Friday night kickoff. Gents, Hugh, we'll start off with you again. I mean, looking forward to Six Nations next weekend. We spoke about it last week a little bit, but now maybe we might want to touch a bit more in detail. We understand what the squads look like. We understand the coaches that are there. Looking forward to that first match. Obviously, we all think that it's between Ireland and France, but I think England might be the surprise package for me personally. But your thoughts on the kickoff next week? Also, who do you think might win between France and Ireland?
I think if Ireland get a win over in France, it'll be one of their best ever results. I think because they've lost Johnny Sexton and it's away in France, and you clearly need to be at least the Springboks to do that. Although Ireland did beat the Springboks, I suppose. But yeah, I think France will be favourites. I think between Toulouse and Bordeaux, they've managed to recapture the good vibes after what must have been pretty low of the way that they went out of the World Cup, where you could say that they were unlucky. I mean, if you lose a game of that level by 1 point, I'd say you're unlucky. So yeah, in terms of everybody else, I don't know. I think this is Italy's best ever chance to beat England. I think, they talk about the freshness of that England squad. I think you can put a lot of that freshness down to injuries and retirements. I mean, Courtney Laws isn't there because he's retired. Owen Farrell has stepped back. Johnny May has stepped back. Ollie Lawrence is injured. Manitou Alangi is injured. Marchant is not unavailable. Henry Arundel is unavailable. So that's kind of where that is coming from. And Ben Youngs as well. He's not there either because he's retired. I don't know. Maybe it's just me seeing what I want to believe, and that's England being bad. Maybe I'm going to be humiliated, and if so, oh well, never mind. But yeah, in terms of France, Ireland, France are at home. Home advantage is a thing, so that's why I'm backing France to beat Ireland and then go on to secure the Grand Slam. England, I don't think are going to be close to either of those two. I think Scotland are best placed to come third. I think Scotland have got France at home. I think, which makes it more interesting because France don't always travel to Scotland that well. Scotland seems to have this thing with France that they can beat them. It's weird, but yeah, I don't expect that they will. And then of course it's between Italy and Wales. I think I would like Wales to win at least 2 games. I don't remember seeing Scotland ever win in Cardiff. So if they do that this weekend, I quit rugby. That's my take on that.
Fair enough. Vuyo, we've got, first of all, France versus Ireland, and then we've got Italy versus England, then the last one, Wales versus Scotland. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so I just wanted to make a comment actually before you started about Fiku. I was actually surprised what kind of person that is, and that's what that documentary gave us. Is that it just gave us a little bit of an insight on what kind of person he is, and he always seems like a quiet guy, but actually, once you get into in depth with that with the series, it actually you can see that he's actually probably one of the nicest teammates to have around. And obviously his leadership skills they do talk about there, so which is quite good. It was nice for me to see. I think I'm definitely with you on this one. I'm with you on this one. Definitely, I don't see.
You are wait. You are with me or you are with Hugh?
Hugh.
Oh.
Hugh. H.
I am with you.
Yeah, I definitely think Ireland will not travel to France and beat them, especially after losing obviously such a big part of Johnny Sexton, big part of Irish rugby. I think France should win that game. Although we spoke about it a lot about in the World Cup with the scrum half, with the reserve scrum half of France. Not having Dupont is going to be obviously tough, but I think they'll be able to still pull this one through. England, obviously, England traveled to Italy. We all want Italy to win, but we know that I'm not sure if they've changed the coaching staff, but Italy, I will probably just fall short on that one. Obviously, England have also lost some quite pivotal guys like the fly half Farrell. What was interesting in the series is when Bothwick said his first interview for the first game, he said Marcus Smith is the best 10, he's the quality 10, and then he dropped him after that. He didn't even play him at 10, actually. The World Cup, he played mostly at 15, which was funny. But I thought, you know what, let these guys lose every game, so it's all right. Anyway, and then Wales versus Scotland. It's going to be tough. I think for me, Hugh, I'm sorry, mate. This is the only game that I will go differ from you. I think Scotland will take this one. But at home, Millennium Stadium, I don't know if it's going to be tough though. But yeah.
I swear we're the only side that doesn't get a home advantage with referees. Like in Twickenham, and this isn't picking on a specific referee, this is all referees. In Twickenham, if it's a 60-40 in favour of the opposition, the referee will still give it to England. You know, who can forget that Owen Farrell's shoulder charge against South Africa stuff? But in Wales, no, it's still Wales, so we're still not going to get the rub of the green from the referee.
Jade?
Yeah, I think France will go on and do the Grand Slam this year. The reason why I'm saying that is because they do play England and they do play Ireland at home. So I think that's actually the 2 biggest games. And if you look at the Six Nations, taking nothing away from Wales and Scotland, but that's the 2 that, is tough going to, and tricky going to Twickenham and going to win there. And so it's also difficult going to Ireland as well. And the way the Six Nations shifted the last few years, where you could see whoever had that, whoever played at home between France and Ireland, they went on to win the game and, win the Six Nations eventually. So I think France will win it. I think Ireland's also struggling at wing. And I think with France, they have two exciting wingers in Penu and Bali, if I'm saying his name correctly. I think they're the exciting wingers. I think France they're more balanced than Ireland at the moment. Even though Dupont is not there, Luko is a quality nine. I see England beating. Oh, let's first go to the Wales-Scotland game. Obviously, a coin toss, but I got a soft spot for Wales. I don't know why. I just got a feeling that we might see an upset there. We might see Wales just, perfect catch ball and they'll just get a victory at, in Cardiff. At Cardiff, I think they might just sneak it there. It will be close. It could be one of those games we're not expecting much from it, and then a lot happens in that game. And then also what I do see happening this weekend, obviously England beating Italy, and then obviously the media going on, and it's between England and France for the Grand Slam, and can England win the Grand Slam, and why they can win the Grand Slam. So yeah, we'll see that a fair lot next week again. But I see that's my picks for the weekend. I'm actually excited and interested to see this whole Six Nations. It's actually, I think the top two are settled, but there's a dogfight between the rest of them. Bar Italy, of course, but Wales, Scotland, and England, that we could get some good games there. And we can get some bad games there between the three of them as well.
No, that is fair.
I think Wales versus England this weekend is going to be a horrendous game. I think that's going to be one of the worst games of the year.
Wales and England.
Yeah, definitely.
Nice. I mean, what is it? Principality Stadium?
Twickenham.
Oh, Twickenham. Sorry, I'm thinking of Wales hosting the home game. My bad. Well, Twickenham. The last time you guys beat Wales, England at Twickenham, was it 2015 World Cup, or have you beaten them recently?
Yeah, 2015 World Cup. I think. Yeah, they've had a bit of a curse over us. We obviously beat them in 2013, and we beat them in 2019. Well, every Wales victory over England is famous because they're the ones we want to beat. There are no famous England victories over Wales. Nobody cares.
Well, interesting. Gentlemen, we've come to the end of our show. I would like to congratulate the Irish women's team. They won their they claimed their first ever Rugby Sevens victory at the world stage. The game was played between Australia and Ireland coming off as victors 1914. It was played in Perth. And then congratulations to Argentina. Argentina are doing quite well in the Seventh Circuit currently. Vuyo, any maybe enlightenment on why and how they've improved so much over the past couple of years?
So how it started is it's Gomaskora he had an 8-year plan. So he basically, after 2016, he spoke to the union, and the union gave him all the players that he wanted. So they saw Sevens as a developing tool instead of just another different rugby game or rugby code. So they used the Argentinian team as a developing tool. And if you remember, you saw a couple of players from even Montero played Sevens. So they decided that they're gonna give those guys the chance, and they can stay there for for as long as they can until the 15s need them. And that was that. So now they're reaping the rewards. It's 2024. Since 2016, he's been working with this group, getting new players in, working with them, getting new players in, working with them, and now they're reaping the rewards. The one thing I'll tell you about Argentina, you go and look at it. They have the best well-rounded team. In fact, not even it is the ultimate team. It's like you're back in the days. You're having a John Alomo in the team and having a Christian Cullen or having this team is so good in terms of they've got size, they've got power, they've got height, they've got speed. So what else are you going to do on the sevens pitch? Because if they're not bumping you on this side, they definitely out-sprinting you on the far side. And if they're not out-sprinting on the far side, they're going to run through the middle. So every ruck is competition. Every breakdown, it's slow ball for the attack. So you can't really play, and I think that's what they've been doing now. And like I say, they've reaped the rewards, and we'll see how after these Olympics how many players they'll lose, and we'll see if they will still continue to be that dominant. But I think they might lose a guy like Moneta, definitely close to losing him. They'll lose definitely. Isgro is definitely going to go play 15 somewhere. They'll lose one or two. There's one or two old guys, but they'll get in new players and they'll have to restart again. I think a lot of teams. I always say Ireland could actually follow exactly the same suit, whereas because Ireland have got a lot of. They've got good academies, especially with Leinster Academy. They can actually give some of those players to sevens, but they don't, and it's exactly the same as South Africa. In South Africa, you don't get the top players. You pick out the best, the ones that are not being used or in the smaller unions, and this is why you don't get the best. So some teams are lucky, and some are not. So it just depends.
Fair, Jade.
Yeah, Bui, I wanted to ask you this. So I know I've read an article a few months ago that actually this Argentina Sevens team is actually their third team or their second team. That side where they develop and they're pumping a lot of money into that as well. It's actually the void filled by the Pampas. Remember they had the Pampas back then, but they're doing the same thing with the Sevens, But Vuyo, if the Olympic Games was, okay, not tomorrow, but I mean, let's say with the Olympic Games coming up, do you think the women would be Australia to win gold and Argentina to win gold for the men's, or do you see Fiji again bringing a few stars like Ironisau, maybe Toisava and those guys just coming back in and taking the gold again? How do you see it if you had to call the Olympic gold now today?
Yeah, definitely today. I'll definitely go Argentina winning gold. Barring they don't pick up obviously injuries within the tournament itself, but looking at the team that played the final today, definitely Argentina winning that one. And in the ladies, Australia, especially if they get Mary Levi back because she was not there. So she wasn't there, so she got a red card and was banned, and then she came back one game and then she got banned again for another red card. So with Australia, definitely Mary Levi coming back would definitely give them the gold. The teams are struggling. Some of the teams are struggling. I don't know if you guys have watched it, but some of the teams are struggling, like the women's. New Zealand is struggling because they don't have pace. Michaela Blythe is she's quite. I don't know why she's slow now, but she must have picked up some weight. She's not as quick. So if you remember, Portia Woodman was their go-to, and she's quite old now. So she's they're playing in the forwards, and then with the New Zealand men's and South Africa is lacking a lot of size, but New Zealand men's is lacking a lot of speed. But they've got the physicality of the boys. I mean, some of the boys that they have, they're quite big, but they just don't have the speed.
Can I give my 2 cents on that New Zealand men's and women's team? Because actually, the New Zealand men's team is a lot of dinosaurs. I mean, there's a few guys there that's older than me, that's still playing in the 7th circuit. I think they should have moved on long ago already. And last year they won it without those guys, and they went back to the likes of Timmy Mickelson and Curry and all of those guys again. But the women, I think losing... is it Wong to rugby league, the playmaker? I think that is an irreplaceable one. And Stacey Waka hasn't really been the player she was, prior last season or so. I think she was their golden girl, but she hasn't really been firing this season as well as Michaela Blythe. So yeah, the Levi sisters or the Levi's at Australia, at Australian rugby, the women's team they're really they're impressing, every weekend. So yeah, I agree with you with that.
Fair enough, gentlemen. Thank you very much. We've come to the end of our installment today. I'd like to thank Vuyo, I'd like to thank you and Jade for your contributions this week. And yeah, looking forward to the more weeks to come and more rugby to talk about. And maybe from next week as well, I'll share a bit about the Ereklasse in the Netherlands, how it's transformed and what is taking place in the Netherlands in terms of rugby, what are the projections going forward, and how the development is growing really, 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 really fast. And thanks, gentlemen, and I hope to see you next week. Have a wonderful Sunday evening.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Thanks, everybody.
Cheers, thank you. Ciao, ciao.